Let's talk about the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Compared to last year, the changes are fairly minor. The schedule will feature 36 races like with previous years. We're going to work through the schedule chronologically, and then I'll give my thoughts on the schedule at the end. So let's start with the Busch Clash and the first big change. The Busch Clash has been moved from Daytona to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. This will be the first time the Clash has been held at a track other than Daytona. The plan is to build a temporary quarter-mile paved track inside the stadium for the event. The season will officially kick off February 20th with the Daytona 500. Homestead has been moved later in the year, so the second race will now be Auto Club, hopefully. Auto Club hasn't been on the schedule since 2019, and so hopefully it can finally make its return and have one final race on the 2-mile layout before it gets reconfigured into a half-mile short track. Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Atlanta all move up a week. Atlanta will be repaved and reconfigured for 2022. We won't have to wait long this season before NASCAR turns right. March 27th, NASCAR will be in Austin, Texas at Circuit of the Americas for their 6th race of the season. Hopefully this race won't be affected by rain as bad as last year. Richmond and Bristol swap dates, and smack in the middle between the two is Martinsville, which keeps its place on the schedule from 2021. Bristol will be on dirt, so it'll probably end up being a demolition derby again. But this year Bristol will be at night, and it's going to be on Easter Sunday. So I talked about this though last year. If I wanted to watch dirt racing, my first thought wouldn't be NASCAR, but also, as I said last year, this is one of those things where TV is running NASCAR, Fox wanted dirt, so we got dirt. Kind of like the Busch Clash now. Talladega and Darlington both keep their dates while Dover and Kansas swap. Darlington will be on Mother's Day. The All-Star race moves back to its traditional date before the Coke 600, but will be at Texas, as this was part of the deal with COTA, as Texas lost their second race to COTA. So they were given the All-Star to make up for it. I personally would like to see the All-Star rotate tracks, giving more fans an opportunity to go to it, which is kind of the point of an All-Star event, but I don't get to make the decisions. The Coke 600 will, as usual, be Memorial Day weekend. No surprise here. Sonoma will be pushed back 1 week to make way for a new entry for the Cup Series, and that will be Worldwide Technology Raceway, or as it used to be known, Gateway. WWT Raceway is a 1.25 mile oval with turns 1 and 2 being tighter than 3 and 4, similar to Darlington, but with less banking. There will be a week break after Sonoma, so NASCAR will not be racing on Father's Day weekend this year. This will also split the Fox and NBC portions of the schedule. Nashville keeps its place as the 17th race. Road America keeps its July 4th weekend date, but will move up to race 18, with the schedule starting a week later this year. Road America is followed by Atlanta and then New Hampshire. Pocono moves back to July 24th. Pocono will not be a doubleheader, as Pocono drops its second race to make way for WWT Raceway. Watkins Glen gets pushed down the schedule, moving Indianapolis up to race 22. Indy will take place in the road course and will again be a doubleheader with IndyCar. Michigan will also be moving up 2 weeks with Indy. Richmond is moved out of the playoffs and will be race 24 on August 14th. Watkins Glen makes its appearance as the second to last cutoff race on August 21st. Daytona returns as the cutoff race for the regular season, so there'll be plenty of drama there. Now to the playoffs. The round of 16 will feature Darlington, Kansas will replace Richmond, and then Bristol will return as the cutoff race. The round of 12 sees Texas swap dates with Vegas, and then Talladega and the Charlotte Roval. The round of 8 is the most changed round. As I mentioned, Texas and Vegas swap dates. So the round starts off with Vegas, followed by Homestead, which makes its return to the playoffs, although not the spot most people probably want. But then returning as the cutoff race will be Martinsville. The championship round will once again return to Phoenix on November 6th. Of the 36 races, only 3 of them are on a Saturday, the other 33 are on a Sunday. No start times have been announced yet, but knowing NASCAR, there'll probably be plenty of 2 or 3 p.m. start times. Tracks with 2 dates are Atlanta, Darlington, Daytona, Kansas, Las Vegas, Martinsville, Phoenix, Richmond, and Talladega. I excluded Bristol and Charlotte because they are on different layouts or surfaces. Texas also doesn't count because the All-Star is not a points race. So now let's get into some of my thoughts on the schedule. Not a fan of the Clash moving. The Clash was always a way to kick off the season in speed weeks at Daytona. Maybe I'm a traditionalist, but this is a move that is probably only being done for TV. Fox has been reportedly pushing for this. I just don't understand how a series that won't even do practice or qualifying at tracks they're already at in the name of saving money is now going to ask their teams to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, back to the East Coast, and then turn around and go back to the West Coast. Talk about travel costs. But then there's also the cost to construct a temporary track into the facility rather than going to a proper racetrack. But a proper quarter-mile track doesn't exist with that much seating capacity in the LA market. I just feel that NASCAR here is doing this to chase after a market that isn't really a strong one for them, and I just don't see that changing with this race. It's fine to go after new markets or try to build yourself up stronger in a market, but if anything, I see it as hurting NASCAR, at least in the long run, because I just don't see fans paying to go to the Clash and then turning around and paying to go to Auto Club in like 3 or 4 weeks, especially with Auto Club being reconfigured into a short track. Too many races and too little time in a market that NASCAR doesn't have a stronghold of. Maybe after this year they don't do the Clash there, but I don't see that happening. I see this kind of as a long-term push for NASCAR to move more into the LA market. So I'm saying this all as having majored in sports marketing in college, so I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. This race may have an initial shiny cool factor, but if you give it a couple years, it'll probably wear off. This was done to add more value to the Clash and make it more exciting and fun for the fans. But is NASCAR going after their core fans, or are they chasing a more casual fan base? I would say that Los Angeles is not NASCAR's core fan base. But further, NASCAR is also devaluing speed weeks with this move, and I use speed weeks in quotes because it's less than a week now. There is less value than ever now for a trip to Daytona, for the Daytona 500, if you plan on going down and taking in all the racing action you can, because there's less of it than ever. Not really a schedule thing, but the reconfiguration at Atlanta is not great. It's been heavily criticized by drivers, and it just doesn't seem like a good idea. Few, if any, drivers were actually consulted about this reconfiguration, but I guess like the Clash, it seemed like a good idea on iRacing, so I guess that's all that seems to matter. The repave definitely needed to happen though, and I even said this in my 2021 schedule video, so. NASCAR at Bristol on Easter may be fine for some people, but some people definitely are going to have an issue with this, considering NASCAR's fan base. I do find it interesting that NASCAR isn't racing on Father's Day, but is on Mother's Day. This is something that has traditionally been the opposite, but I'm not really bothered by it either, just thought I'd point it out. All-Star at Texas, not good, but it's one of those things where NASCAR could move it, but then Texas probably throws a fit, and they have to give 2 races back to Texas, which could mean dropping COTA. As I've said many times, Texas was given the All-Star in exchange for dropping their second race and giving it to COTA. So I'm just not sure what NASCAR does here. WWT Raceway is replacing the second Pocono date. WWT has been pushing really hard for a Cup date, and I definitely think it's worth a try. This is one of those times where it's fine to go after a new market. The St. Louis market has been absent from the Cup Series, and other racing at WWT Raceway seems to do well, so it's worth a try at least. Gonna be honest though, not gonna miss seeing Pocono twice, especially with them being in the same weekend as they were last year. NASCAR Senior Vice President of Strategy and Innovation Ben Kennedy had this to say, quote, "A lot of the schedule is now on a year-to-year basis. If it's successful, which I'm sure it will be, it could be a long-term venue and market for us. St. Louis and the Midwest are hungry for NASCAR racing," end quote. Well, they did take Chicagoland and Kentucky away from the Midwest, so there is that. And also on that note, Chicagoland and Kentucky are both still absent from the schedule this year. But now let's move on to Indy. The Indy race will be on the road course again. I'm hoping that Indy has figured out what the cause of the curb issues at the turn 5-6 chicane. In order to ensure that this doesn't happen again, there's always my suggestion, though, of running the old F1 loop. NASCAR, you can have that one for free too. There has been discussions about the rotating of the event between the oval and the road course. This seems like a good idea in theory, but I personally would rather watch the road course if the oval is going to be boring. If the oval can produce good racing with the new car, then I'm all for it. This is going to heavily depend on the new car and how well it drives the different types of tracks. If NASCAR was going to be smart about this, they would be testing both the oval and the road course at Indy with the new car and use driver feedback to make the decision as to which would be better racing. But looking at a recent track configuration, you know the one, NASCAR doesn't seem to care about their drivers' opinions, so probably not going to happen. But again, NASCAR, you can have that one for free. Texas, still in the playoffs, is not ideal, but I could say the same thing about Texas just being on the schedule at this point. This from someone that actually used to like Texas back in the day, but that was before another horrible reconfiguration. Homestead back in the playoffs is good. Homestead typically creates good racing, so this is a solid move. Most people probably want Homestead to be the final race. There's some part of me that wants that too, because that's what I grew up with, so there's the traditional feel of that. But also, if I'm thinking about which race I'd rather go to, Phoenix or Miami, Miami seems like the better place. I've never been to either city, but Miami just seems like the more fun of the two. No offense to anyone from Phoenix. I'm not saying it's boring. I'm just saying Miami seems more fun. The marketing person in me is just saying Miami is easier to sell to fans for a championship finale than Phoenix. That's the point I'm trying to make. On the flip side though, Homestead was kind of billed as a replacement for Speed Weeks, which isn't weeks, it's not even a week now. But it still gave fans 2 weeks of racing in Florida. It's hard to say if this would have actually worked out that way because Auto Club got canceled. They did the Daytona Road Course, and so this pushed Homestead back a week, and it was only there for 1 year. So it's just hard to say. The two tracks are almost 300 miles away, so I think NASCAR's idea with that was a bit of a stretch. but definitely a fan of it moving back into the playoffs. Now if we can just get rid of Texas. So now you've heard from me, and now I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the 2022 NASCAR Cup schedule? What are your thoughts about NASCAR moving the Clash to LA? What do you think about Worldwide Technology Raceway being added in place of a second Pocono race? Let me know. What do you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, so long everybody.